Dear colleagues, we continue our working day, and I invite Mr. Alexander Hug, Principal Deputy Chief Monitor of the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission in Ukraine. Mr. Hug, the floor is yours.
Dear friends, thank you for coming today to this briefing. Today I wish to focus on two intertwined issues, the violence and its effect on the civilian population of Donbass. In the presentation today I will be using a map here in front of you to illustrate the locations I referred to, and I will use another slide to demonstrate to you other observations that we have been made in the course since I spoke to you last. Well, I regret to say we have seen a massive increase in the level of violence in the past few days, especially in the areas of the destroyed airport in Donetsk. And just to give you an indication of the intensity of the violence, on Monday evening, in less than an hour, we recorded 247 explosions there, and the following morning, within 50 minutes, we logged another 377 explosions. Quite frankly, I am shocked. With the sides politically committed to disengagement and weapons withdrawal, this increase is not just reckless, but even worse. It's irrational. The intensity of violence reminds me of the worst days of the conflict. It makes a mockery of the ceasefire. As in previous weeks, the SMM has also been registering significant violence in the wider Horlivka area, in particular in and around Zaitsevo, just north of that city. On Sunday, for example, in less than 30 minutes, we recorded 46 explosions and approximately 160 rounds of heavy machine gun fire there. On Monday evening, we logged 237 explosions and at least 100 bursts of heavy machine gun fire in, again, just half an hour. And just yesterday evening, we logged another 102 explosions there. Areas to the northeast of Mariupol remain meanwhile tense. We have been recording sporadic shelling and small arms fire there. In particular, the SMM camera in Shirokine on Tuesday evening captured multiple explosions, as well as traces of incoming and outgoing fire in and around Kominternove. The Luhansk region generally remains calm but is tense. However, the area around Popasna, Solote, Pervomaisk increasingly becoming an area of concern. In most other areas in the Luhansk region, the sites are separated by the Donets River. Here, however, the sites are too close. Towns are Solote are cut in two with little more than a few streets or some open space separating the sites. The road hub around Artemivsk to the west is also very close. Violence has been creeping closer and closer to it from Chorlivka and Debaltseve. Because we are so often denied access by the so-called LPR in the area, it is impossible to be sure of what is going on there. We do, however, regularly receive reports from there of ongoing violence, most of it happening at night. Sometimes our monitors also register violence themselves. Last Friday, for instance, close to Solote, they heard 4 explosions originating approximately 10 kilometers to the northeast. The following day, they heard 1 explosion 4 kilometers to the northwest. We also get other indications. On Sunday, after 6 consecutive failed attempts to gain access, we finally gained entry to a military-type compound near Pervomaisk. That's number 6 on this map. We saw inside several crates, some of them containing 122 millimeter artillery ordnance. This demonstrates that proscribed weapons are present on the contact line. It also underlines the clear link between freedom of movement restrictions and ceasefire violations. When they have something to hide, they do not want the SMM present. One of the reasons we have been using to overcome this is aerial surveillance imagery to counter such freedom of movement restrictions. Such imagery this week, in fact, revealed the presence of addendum proscribed weapons in violation of the withdrawal lines. It spotted 1 tank near Novokhodorsky and 2 tanks in the middle of Donetsk city on Sunday. The failure of the sites to withdraw proscribed weapons is evident in any case. Our monitoring, in fact, continues to show an approximately 30% discrepancy between declared weapons and actual SMM observations with regard to the implementation of the addendum to the package of measures on both sides of the contact line. Dear friends, all of this has a predictable impact and effect on the civilian population. Thankfully, this week we had no reports of civilians being caught up in crossfire. This, however, is not because the sites have tried to minimize the risks. On the contrary, they do the opposite, placing military hardware and personnel amongst civilian infrastructure. We continue to note, for example, an entrenched so-called DPR position at the school in Zaitsev. On Monday, we saw 2 armed personnel carriers right beside that school. We even saw armed so-called DPR members at the hospital in Debaltseve. We also noted camouflaged military hardware hidden amongst civilian houses in Komiternove and Pavlopil. Such a practice recklessly endangers the lives of civilians. It must stop. If ethical considerations do not prevail, legal ones will. To those responsible, I suggest they take a look at the relevant international laws. Increased violence has seen the closure of the crossing point near Zaitsevo, and there is a threat of closure of the one near Stanica Luhansk. Residents in Zaitsevo told us the closure would mean having to walk through minefields in order to reach their places of employment in Artemivsk. This raises two related issues: mines and livelihoods. Already we have seen casualties. The chief medical doctor of the Central Municipal Hospital in Dershinsk told us that two Zaitsevo residents had been treated for shrapnel wounds. They had stepped on a booby trap close to a Ukrainian armed force checkpoint in Leninske, that's number 13 of the map, 8 kilometers southwest of Zaitsevo, number 4 of the map. The use of mines around checkpoints is commonplace. This week we saw them at so-called DPR checkpoints near Yasinovata and at the Ukrainian Armed Force checkpoint near Marinka. In terms of livelihoods, many of those people working in Artemivsk will rightly not take the risk. They will, however, risk losing their job as a result. We have noted a similar dilemma facing people in Kominternovo or Vodiane. That's number 9 on the map. They are unable to cross Ukrainian armed force checkpoints near their villages. They therefore cannot reach their workplaces in Mariupol, which is number 8 on the map, unless they take unapproved roads or cross fields. They will not reach them. And as you know, such routes are highly likely dangerous and infested with mines. We already know that checkpoint controls cause chaos with the commercial life in Donbas. A once integrated economic area has been artificially divided, causing high prices and shortages. And now we have heard from so-called DPR members in Horlivka that unless one has a so-called DPR business registration, nothing more than 100 kilogram or 1,000 euro worth of goods will be allowed to cross their checkpoints. The violence also worsens the humanitarian situation in other significant way. All along the contact line, people are without basic utilities. Critical infrastructure that should be repaired, indeed whose repair has been agreed by both sides in Minsk, largely remains unrepaired. there has been some work, but violence is constantly getting in the way. Not only are the lives of the repair crews endangered, but so too are those of the SMM monitors who facilitate and monitor the work. And so too are the lives of people living on the contact line. Living in freezing winter conditions without water, heat, or electricity is a threat in itself. I am reminded again in this context of what we saw in Zaitsewe this week. Our monitors examined 5 craters caused by mortars. Shrapnel indeed kills and maims, but it also destroys everything in its path. On that occasion there, electricity lines leading from an electricity substation were severed. And so, not only is repair work being prevented, but more damage is being inflicted. This must stop. Those with responsibility to make it happen must do so now. It is time to translate words into actions. It is time to do so what has been agreed. Dear friends, I was particularly concerned this week by reports of disappearances in Donetsk. Some of those held have been released, and most of them expelled from areas not controlled by the government. But 2 others remain in captivity, namely Mr. Ihor Kozolovsky, a renowned religious scholar, and Ms. Marina Chernekova, the coordinator and founder of the local non-governmental organization Responsible Citizens of Donbas. These people are trying to translate words into action, unlike the sites. They are trying to improve things in Donbas. The people of Donbas need more people like them. The so-called DPR should immediately free such people and allow them to continue their work. There are too many problems, too few people trying to solve these problems. It might be obvious to everyone, but given what the SMM has seen this week, and I can show it to you again here, it is nonetheless worth pointing out a full, sustainable ceasefire remains the basic requirement for peace and normalization of the situation. At the end, dear friends, as usual, at the end of my statement, I would like to inform you about the latest mission numbers. As of today, the mission counts 686 monitors, of which are 543 deployed in the east. In addition, there are 292 Ukrainian colleagues working with us and 78 other international staff working for the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Dear journalists, are there any questions or clarifications? Yeah, please.
Olha Komarova, Radio Liberty. That camera which you mentioned, which is installed in Shirokina, whether it has to register which side violates the ceasefire first, and whether this camera fixed who did violate the ceasefire first, and can you say who it was, which side it was?
Received a call from a resident in Comiterno. After that call, who said that the village is under fire, that is incoming fire, we have directed the camera towards the direction of Comiterno, which is some 23, 25 kilometers to the north of Mariupol. And while the fire has already started, we have captured the firing incoming and outgoing on both sides at around 7, 8 o'clock on that evening.
Any other questions? If there are not, we're going to... We're looking forward to seeing you next week. Thank you. Дякую, колеги. На цьому завершуємо прес-конференцію і...
Dear colleagues, we finish our press conference, and the last hour today's conference will be at 2:30. Thank you.